I got it cut and sewed in a day. Shout out to my homie Manolo in Atlanta. He cut and sewed it for me quick.
Nice.
And I just happened to be at this agency party for the MLS Cup. And little did I know, I was wearing the jersey, obviously, you know what I'm saying, from the brand standpoint. I'm sitting on the couch, I'm playing FIFA. Flocka walks up right here to me. It was like an awkward pause. I was like, damn, this is crazy. He's right here. And all of a sudden he turns over, he goes, yo, that jersey kind of fire. I said, bro, little did you know, like I spent all the last 24, 48 hours trying to get you said jersey.
Welcome to the show. Sekou
Glad to be here.
You know,
yes, sir.
we finally got it popping. You know, what are you doing right now? Like, what are your current roles and responsibilities? You know, you have your own brands. You're also working with other brands. So just, you know, maybe introduce yourself a little bit with what, you know, you run into someone in the elevator. What do you tell them you do? Just a bit more than that, you know?
Yeah, you know what's funny? I always have this weird thing where I have to explain it to my parents, and it's always like the hardest thing to do. You know what I'm saying? Like in my head, and of course it makes sense on paper, but dog, it's probably I even if I begin to try to tell them like, what do I do? Like they're just like, okay, yeah, whatever that is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But man, yeah, dude, that's kind of been my life, a whole bunch of different roles now. A lot of my life now is split between like agency work. Obviously, you know, I work with FSV, and then you know, the brand work, doing a lot of the community work we do out here in Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? Between those two, that's usually my day to day. Yeah, it's usually, you know, I at least try to get the Sunday leagues. I still play that Sunday league, you know, get a little paper under the table, you know what I'm saying, to make sure I'm fit, you know. But outside of that, yeah, it's just life now has been just half between the brand and then half between the agency, and both are like two whole completely different jobs at times. And sometimes it's hard to balance, but again, like I always tell people, I'm blessed and highly favored, man, because like at the end of the day, I'm still doing soccer. You know what I'm saying? Like we all have what's the best way to say? We all have like, we play ball, but to kind of continue that journey in a different way for me is the biggest blessing, man. So like, even though I'm like busy 24/7, it's like, it's still a fun busy. You know what I'm saying? And between those two, I mean, even with the agency, it's just a lot of different things I do. I wear a lot of different hats there, and the brand, same similar situation, but. You know, I always tell people too, that's kind of like my personality. You know, I like to do different things at different times. I've never been the one to kind of like, I'm just a graphic designer. I just do tech packing. Like, it's the fun of it is doing a different thing every day. Now, there is a detriment to a lot of things, you know what I'm saying? But again, in terms of a livelihood, man, I love it. I just love it every day something new. You know, you know, every day something belongs to the sport. So I ain't got no plans, really. I ain't got no plans at all.
Now, for our listeners, because we've done extensive research on you, Sekou.
Ooh, Narwhal style. Okay.
A deep dive. But you said you work, most of your time is spent working on your brand and with your agency. Your brand, which is you're a founder of, is KitBoys, and the agency that you work with in conjunction with is For Soccer Ventures, correct? Did I have that right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Correct.
And that's where most of your time spent, other than on the pitch on Sunday mornings.
Yeah, you know it, man. Gotta keep fit once a week at least minimum.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
We had Kaylin Carr on the pod, so we got some For Soccer Ventures love. I just had a call with JJ the other day too, so
shout out JJ as well, man. That's the gang as well.
Yeah, shout out JJ. No, I feel like, I mean, even just in that brief description, I feel again like we have a lot of these similarities of like, I mean, just doing so many different things on a daily basis and not just being a specialist in one thing. And I think we can probably talk about this a little bit later in the pod of just like the dynamics of that and kind of being a jack of all trades, master of none, except I mean, I feel like you are the master of multiple things, so we can get into that.
Oh man, I appreciate that.
So let's take it back a little bit. You know, so now people know that you're here working for Soccer Ventures. You obviously have your own brand, continuing to work in the game, and have a unique relationship to soccer from a business standpoint. But let's talk a little bit kind of how you got here. So obviously from our, you know, mentioned extensive research, we know you grew up in East Atlanta. But can you just share a little bit about, you know, your childhood growing up in East Atlanta and kind of when this relationship with soccer started. And, you know, even as far as what were your aspirations as a kid, just because I think it's interesting. It's cool to hear what people wanted to do when they were younger. And then now, that, you know, we're actually in a position to be doing some of this shit. Like, you know, how did we navigate from there?
Yeah, no, I have a very interesting journey, and it is a very interesting journey, especially through ball. But yeah, man, born and raised here in Atlanta. My mother's first generation here. She's actually from Africa. She's from the Cape Verde Islands. So yeah, she's first generation here. A lot of my family is from Boston. And yeah, they moved down here, had me down here. Don't know why. I got put in soccer real early, maybe about year 4. You know, of course, that's when, you know, that's the very start of age. So yeah, year 4, I got put in.
When you were 4 years old?
Basketball. Four. Like I played, there was a small youth club that had a YMCA in East Atlanta, and that's where I used to play ball at when I was a kid, and they just put me in the program. Now, it was always weird. I never got the why, because, you know, my dad's big into basketball. He's a big Julius Erving fan. My mom just was like, just regular with the sports situation. But again, I think it was a situation where they knew how to keep me out of trouble, and the first step was kind of like, hey, put him into sport. And then the first thing they put me into was soccer. So yeah, year 4 out the gate. East Atlanta is a very diverse place, man. Like, it's Caribbean, it's East Africans, it's just a slew of people. I think, you know, now that I look back on it, it's probably one of the best experiences of my life being at that club, especially year 4. I was probably played there until I was like 13. I played for all black youth team out here, man. And like, you know, especially in soccer nowadays, man, that's the hardest thing to kind of find. You know, it's just a lot of people that, you know, resonate with you, look like you know what I'm saying, and play the game with you. For me, that was a lot of my life, you know, so I loved everything about it. So like from an early age, it was like, well, I get to enjoy these type of people, you know what I'm saying? I'm playing this game. Like, it was definitely, once I got probably about 7, 8, I was like, yeah, I want to be a soccer player, whatever it got to be, however I got to do it. You know what I'm saying? I had to be, you know what I'm saying? And it's just a testament to the true genuine experience I think I had early on. And yeah, so yeah, from year 4 all the way through I played D2 college ball out here, put me into school and everything. So yeah, that was a lot of my journey out here in Atlanta. But yeah, my early life, a lot of it was just playing ball, man. That's the only thing I had an interest in, really, up front, if I'm being honest.
Hey, Sekou, did you say that you played on an all black soccer league or club from like age 4 to 13?
Yeah, 13. And the only reason why I left the club at 13 is the club dissolved due to underfunding. And that was the only reason why I didn't stay. And again, I still recognize how unique of an experience that was, because yeah, it was all black, but it was like Eastern Africans, it's Caribbeans, it's, you know, it's so many different people that I got to be in touch with so early on. It kind of did give me a pretty good early like worldview about things, you know what I'm saying? And East Atlanta is still part of the hood, you know what I'm saying? So with all those kind of combinations together, it just, again, probably one of the most genuine experiences I had as a kid, and what kind of begun my life in the sport, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Is an all black soccer club kind of unique? Because frankly, I've never heard of that. I mean, I read that in your bio.
It's super unique. Honestly, the more and especially the work I do with the agency, the more I realize stories where it's like, it's almost the top maybe 5 percentile, or at least the bottom 5 percentile, that you'll get that type of situation. Especially, you know, soccer in the South, man, South End in general, it's kind of hard to even have that thing come to fruition sometimes, you know what I'm saying, in that kind of segment. So, you know, usually all the kids my age played football. It's, you know, the South is big football states, and that's how it kind of works. So yeah, it was such a unique experience, man. And every day I look back, I'm like, that's probably the best thing that could have been for me at the time, you know, because I got to see both sides of things as well, you know, from that standpoint.
Yeah, no, I think that's such like a formative time, you know, in your life. And I feel like I was very lucky, obviously. Growing up in Oakland is one of the most diverse places in the country. And, you know, my team was like half Mexican. We had a couple of kids from like, they were Afghani, a couple of Asian kids. Like me and my best friend were like the token white kids on the team, you know. It was just like, such a like combination of so many different like cultures.
And his father was French.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we had, it was cool. Like, I mean, I feel, you know, obviously it was different, but like, I think being exposed to such diversity at such a young age is important.
It's everything, man. It's everything.
I think soccer is such a global game that like, obviously there's still such horrible like racism that happens all over the world, but just like how diverse some of these locker rooms are, I feel like as from a playing perspective, like it really gives you a different global view, you know, being able to share a locker room with that many different cultures.
Agreed.
So that's dope. And so you mentioned you went to a D2 school, you know, following high school in Atlanta. You know, when did this kind of shift from wanting to play professionally, or I don't know if you mentioned that that was kind of your goal, into staying connected to the game, but from a business standpoint, or not as a player? And this is something that this is something we talked about with Raheem. This is something we talked about.
Shout out to Raheem as well.
Shout out to Raheem. This is something this is something I talk about just, you know, as someone who's played professionally for some years now. And, you know, at some point I'm going to have to transition into something else. And so there's an inherent identity shift when you are a footballer who is either a pro or has pro aspirations, and that changes into, I'm going to do something else. The fact that you've been able to now parlay that into something still so connected to the game and impactful is like, I mean, bravo, you're doing some super dope shit. So like,
appreciate that. Talk
a little bit about that, you know, that shift mentally and identity wise from playing in college. So like, oh snap, like I'm not playing pro, but I'm going to still be doing something in this game that's dope in a different respect.
Yeah, 100. And I'll bring it back a little bit too. I think, you know, once I hit age 13, I was probably late middle school, early high school too at that age. Yeah. You know, my birthday's really late, so I was always the youngest kid in the classes. But, you know, I to kind of bring it back, a lot of beyond just the sport, I had an inherent, I had a really bad, I call it really bad, but really with, and I was hustling and buying and sell sneakers when I was 13 to like 20. That was the way I kind of made my lunch money early on. So, you know, all this from sneakers, you know, streetwear is obviously the closest related field. And, you know, for a lot of my life, man, that was what the things I enjoyed from a hobby standpoint. So, yeah, if I wasn't hustling, flipping kicks just to make some lunch money on the side, I was just, you know, studying streetwear and kind of like that was just my lane. That was the crowd of people I hung out with. And, you know, I think that was a big, I guess, influence into how I kind of decided my career post the game. So I kind of start there. And then, from there, I think I never really gave up on the pro dream. And I don't think we ever really do. You know what I'm saying? Like once I got D2, it was like, or at least when I got to college, it was still that situation. It was like, how do I find myself getting to pro from wherever I'm at? Like, I don't think that belief never wavered. Probably it wasn't until probably my senior year, I had a pretty bad ankle surgery. And it was kind of like, this is a big mountain to climb where I had to like do some decision making. But I think you made a good point, man. I think that decision, especially for athletes in general, is one of the hardest shifts we have to deal with, you know, especially coming from the sport we love. I think, you know, really for me, it's almost like you have to change your complete identity for where it's at to something different, and to detach and uproot like that many years of your life to just transition is a very, very hard thing. And I don't think, you know, us as athletes talk about it enough neither. Because it's like, it almost goes into the mental health conversation. It almost goes into just a general health conversation. Like you're asking us to like completely shift what we like, believe, love, you know, our influences, you know, our friends, you know what I'm saying, to a certain extent. So it's a humongous shift. I think for me, I did come to terms more with it that senior year, but at the same time, it was still like, I think the thing that kind of progressed things for me was like, yo, I have to be around the sport. Like because I was so diehard on going pro. And in that situation, it was like, well, if it ain't this, it has to be something here. Like I knew there was business in sport. I knew that, you know, there's higher management level, you know, they had I think a sports management class in college. So I knew that there was like a route into the business side of sport. And I was like, well, if I got to continue to love, I'm just going to change the medium, you know what I'm saying? A little bit more so than just leave the sport in general. Because I think I just was never really ready to make that decision. If I'm being honest, man, like all my friends, everything I ever knew, that was the game. You know what I'm saying? So if it wasn't the game in that capacity, I was like, nah, bump it. We got to find a different capacity to work in from that standpoint. And so, I just had to ask myself early on. It was like, well, if you're going to be in the business of sport, like, is it corporately? Is it ticket sales? Like, what do you want to do? And for me, like, I did so much just in the lane of streetwear and that kind of vibe just for such a long time. And I kind of studied it. Like, I don't know, it was just always super interesting to me. And I pretty much studied it a lot. And that's where I was like, well, if there isn't a lane for me, I have to build the lane. And I think that's when the journey kind of really got started. And it was just a jump off the cliff type of moment, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. You know, your generation, I think, is fortunate in the sense that my generation,
I agree.
If you didn't play sports or, hook on with management, there were very few, jobs within the sports space, right? And I think your generation, maybe because, our culture is really crazy about sports and crazy about a lot of sports. There's lots of opportunities if you're creative, ambitious, and willing to take some chances to kind of stay in that space, but create something within that space. And that didn't exist, 30, 40 years ago. And
I heavily agree. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely say we're blessed in that standpoint. Like, I agree with you. Like, there was a lot more responsibility you guys had from a work standpoint as well. People getting married earlier. It's a lot of different life things. You know what I'm saying? Like,
a lot has happened since this guy, was our age. A lot has happened.
Well, he's still young, man. He's still what? He's barely.
I think your generation, and I admire this, and I've said this to more than one of our guests. I think your generation is really should be admired for your entrepreneurial spirit, your willingness to take chances, to go out and create something. That was not kind of the mindset.
Maybe
my generation.
Maybe it's generational, definitely, but I also think it's just it's who we want to like. These are people who I fuck with. Like, these are people who I want to highlight. Like, who are doing. Like you said, you created your own lane. I mean, I think that's something that. I have plenty of people I know who were involved in the game, loved the game, wanted to play pro. Some shit happened where it didn't, and they're doing sales right now. Right. They're doing some other shit because it's a different kind of commitment. And I mean, I think just going back to like wanting to stay in the game. I think it's unique because I think you have a very unique path because. Like, some people, the having to not pursue a professional opportunity, sometimes that causes them to go completely away. They're like, damn, this game has, I'm not able to do what I want to do, so I just want to get as far away as possible.
That's true.
So I think, you took a very unique route in that you wanted to stay in, but also create something uniquely yours, and so talk a little bit about just how you kind of navigated that, finding career paths within the game, but also kind of managing that relationship to the game. And what was that first thing after school that you got into? Was it Nike or was it KitBoys?
Yeah, it was. So at the time, actually, funny enough, I was working with Nike at probably my senior year. I think that the year I had surgery, I actually got a red shirt. Luckily, it was late in the game, but I actually got my red shirt cleared. So there was a lot of downtime. And they had a brand experience store out here in Atlanta, which I also got to share my passion, obviously, for sneakers. Like, that 40% at Nike is the best thing in the world. I wish I had it now. But again, like, it was a way to kind of continue, like, and I think that was my first decision. If I had to pick another route, like this, obviously that was the A route. Like, go work for a sporting company. Like, obviously that makes sense. But I think early on, going back to the path of it, for me, I think it was by chance. A lot of people in my family, I will kind of go back a little further too. A lot of people in my family come from the creative side of things. Like, there's a lot of artists, painters, and that go on my side of the family. My dad cut hair for a long time. That was just his thing. And he was a very self-starter person as well. So I kind of do attribute that self-starting, like, if you're going to build your own lane, like, do it to Pops, respectfully, because, I grew up watching him just, he owned a barbershop. He didn't just work, he just owned one. And it did well for us, you know what I'm saying? And it made ends meet. So, I think the self-starter mentality kind of kicked in. And then at the time when I was at Clayton, I did happen to stumble over a heat press. And I think this is where our stories kind of align a little bit. Like, you find a medium that's slightly different, but you're in the sporting environment. So, it was just a random heat press in the locker room, old one probably that they had. Me being crazy, I turned it on. I was like, all right, boom, it works. You know what I'm saying? And then from there, I end up just doing a little research, and I found an old mom and pop store that cut vinyl, like the sports vinyl, like the stuff we do letters and stuff with, right? So I was like, boom. I was like, all right, I've always wanted to have, like, from a design standpoint, like, just like the sponsor, where the sponsor sits on a jersey, like, I wanted to have my own brand name. And at the time, I think this is like towards the tail end of my senior year, where I was like, okay, if I had to build it, but I always had it in the back of my mind, if I had to build it, what would the name be? And, you know, the KitBoys was always just the one. It was the one. It just, it was the identity to describe me and my homies, you know what I'm saying, at the time.
Yeah.
So that's what we called each other. And, you know, of course, overseas in the locker room too, they call it kits. They don't call it jerseys.
Yeah.
And so that was a big influence as well. The European kids that come over here and play college, I was like, all right, I'm going to jack the lingo a little bit and we're going to run it this way. So yeah, kind of at the tail end of my senior year, I was playing with the idea a lot. And then I ran into the heat press. When I ran into the heat press, I was like, okay, here's a moment to just try it, right? So boom, took a couple months. I, you know, went to the mom and pop down the street. She cuts it by hand, you know, built a good relationship with her. She cut me my first vinyl, took it immediately back to Clayton. This was probably like 10 minutes away from the university too. So again, it's just the luck of the draw, I guess, in the situation of that. Because sometimes
it's like the Bill Gates being born like a mile away from the only
from the
West Coast. Like you happen to have a heat press in your locker room, you know?
Yeah. And it was me. And I actually dug for that. I was looking for extra old gear and I dug and found the heat press. And I was like, all right, boom, I want to try it. So again, cool passion project. Let me try to get the sponsor. Boom, I got it cut by her. It wasn't too expensive. Came back, pressed it. I completely fucked up my first jersey. Like, and that's how I always love to tell the experience. Cause like I'm pulling off the vinyl, it's stuck, it's destroyed. I'm like, I got a brand new. It was an old Juve kit I had just had from the closet, wasted the kit. I was like, boom. But you know, I was like,
just like a penny or something.
Right. And but see, I was so excited. I spent all the time doing the reshop. I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. So then again, jacked up the first Juve kit. I had a second one that was a third kit from like 05. And the final, and I had probably another kit beyond that. And I pressed those two and I just handed them to my friends. So I was like, boom, this is cool. So from that, the heat press experience became, let me go find some old referee kits. Let me try to do something different. It's not a jersey, but obviously something that aligns with the sport. All right, boom, tried the jersey kits. I did like a small batch, maybe of those. And then like my friends all wanted the referee jersey. So like that was the born identity of it, of the KitBoys, how it came into fruition. So yeah, it was on the tail end of like, damn, I don't know what this lane is going to do. It's looking bleak for the continue as a pro because the surgery was just so tough. Rehab was tough. It was an 8-month surgery. The whole process was tough.
You're pressing your KitBoys logo that you had created on existing team jerseys, not your college team, but professional teams, and your friends are digging it.
Yeah, and it was like, and to kind of talk about that topic, is like in streetwear, there's a thing where you bootleg a lot of things, right? Like that was early conception of what streetwear was. So me knowing that, that's why I was like, let me just put it on the kits that already existed, just because it's like a bootleg way of bringing my brand to fruition, like the OG origins of how streetwear started. So I was like, all right, let me do it that way. And it made it easier to sell too, because sometimes creating your own design up front and then having to like, it's a bit tough. You have to build brand.
There's barriers. Yeah. I feel like there's barriers to starting out that, I mean, like even now, like doing something as simple as like a podcast t-shirt, like at this point, we can do that because we know the ins and outs of like a blank, finding a screen printer, like all these different things that add up to a finished product. We now know, but at the time, it's like, or at least this is speaking for myself, like I was very much into the same shit in college. Like my sister was plugged in at Adidas and I was getting like every crazy Adidas shoe. So I was like this was like peak Yeezy Pharrell, like, so I was very much
you got all the good classes.
It was crazy. So like I was very much into it, but at the same time, like this is where I think I differ a little bit from you, is that my identity was so much football that I was like, damn, I'm into this other stuff, but like I can't act on it because that's like going too far out of the footballer box. And so which looking back is like I wish I leaned into more of that side of me at the time. But like you think it's intimidating as fuck. Like
that's what it is.
How do I make a t-shirt from scratch? That's intimidating versus like, oh, if I have this and I can just print on it already, that's like
it was the easy way in.
You're able to enter, or put your feet in the water and kind of see what it's like. And then from there, you're like, oh, let me just find my own blank. Let me just, create my own logo, my own patch, and make my own jersey.
Facts.
Were you selling those early jerseys that you created?
Of course, yeah. I think, the first batch, obviously, I gave to friends, just, the people who like, just the media homies, just to kind of see, just from an interest standpoint. But then after that, a couple of social media posts later, it's like, I want one. all right, well, yeah, cool. Let me make a couple more. You know what I'm saying? It was just a quick way to do it. And again, these runs at the time were probably just like 10 kits at a time. Nothing heavy where it was too much against me. Plus I had, dozens and hundreds of kits in the closet anyway. So I was like, exactly. I might as well make use of all these kits that be sitting here. And so it made an easy decision, I would say.
Okay. So when did this kind of, you like the name KitBoys, you started branding jerseys. When did this become like, okay, this is going to be a brand that I start? And what were your goals when you started it? And how did it kind of evolve? How did you, earn a living, earn a livelihood after school while you were, building this brand, or how did you prioritize those two things when you're like, because, seeing where KitBoys is now and where it's going, like, I think sky's the limit, when I saw KitBoys from the jump, I'm like, yo, this is one of the reasons why I think we resonate is because I saw it and I was like, yo, there's a space for this and this has a huge potential, and so what did you think when you were first starting it of what it could be? And then at the same time, you're like, oh shit, I just left college. Like I also gotta pay rent while also building this brand.
The proverbial day job.
Yeah, that's the proverbial day job. The one we love and hate, boy. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, again, it's all the one we love and hate. But I mean, I think for me, it was a time where I was, again, I think because I was so into the streetwear alignment, I knew the immediate transgression was like, okay, or the transition at least was to, okay, let's see what the brand thing looks like. Originally, I was going to start it by myself. And I always tell people this is kind of like the catalyst in my journey too. It was like, originally I was like, damn, I'm just gonna start it myself, try to thug it, figure it out. From there I was like, damn. And to your point earlier, I was like, yo, there's a bunch of my homies who are going through the same mental identity shift that I am, from various levels. My boy DJ just got sent to Chicago Fire, a couple of the homies. Shout out to DJ, man. Shout out to DJ. Early on, me and him were spearheading just product, and he's such a product whiz, man. Like if you got into DJ, we played together in academy when we were in Atlanta too, before I went to school. But yeah, he's such a product whiz, and I had him in my corner, and I was looking at a lot of my homies. I was like, dang, there's a lot of us going through this, and for me, this is what made me jump. Kind of, the jump is always the hardest thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we're in a generation where we're allowed to jump, but the jump is still a very, very hard thing to do. I think at the time I was like, damn, there's so many people that around me that I knew needed just something else to, just to even get into that just wasn't a 9-to-5. I was like, I talked to my brother about it. I have my little brother, he lives with me now. And he was like, yeah, why don't we just do it with all the homies? And there was a lot of homies who had creative passions, similar to probably your situations. Like there's a couple homies who have a few creative passions. It's like, okay, the brand can help everyone. And when I figured out that point of it, I was like, that was like the thing that made me go every day, was the fact that like I could potentially help somebody beyond me or just immediate homies get to something different or find, or at least not just suffer in that process. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, it's a very, very hard thing. And so, my brother was like, yo, why don't we do it with the homies? And that's all once he said that, I built one big group text. I was like, yo, you guys seen what I've been doing lately, I think, this could really benefit all of us. Like everybody in the group chat, just, if you want to be down, cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just need the help and we could all do things together. And, everybody was with it at the time because everybody was going through the same thing. We don't know what's next. So it's like, okay, we'll have a day job, but we need to do something, right? So, from there, man, like, it was a big, we had one of my homies, Derek, had a basement, and we used to meet in his basement every week. I used to build an agenda. I was like, all right, these are the things we doing. This is how, and I was ready, like, because it was so easy to step in that position because, again, I think personality driven by me, it was like, damn, I can affect somebody else's life and really show them a different side of the sport or a different lane of the sport that could really benefit them. So the early stages was that. Like as soon as the brand got big enough to where I was like, all right, I feel like I want to do the brand, make the brand decision. I was like, yeah, let's do it. I got the homies together and it was agenda. I got everybody in that basement every Friday, every Saturday. This time, you know what I'm saying? Everybody showed up, and for weeks on end, it was that to start it. And that was really what kind of built the energy for it early on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think I ask you sorry to interrupt, but can I ask you a weird kind of dad question?
No, 100. Go ahead.
This is a quintessential dad question.
Goodness.
I love it. I know that in college, you were not only a good
Yeah.
soccer player, but you were a good student, all academic team a couple times. So,
Yeah.
which is cool. That's important.
Yeah.
That to a dad, that's really important. That's, you know, that's
Nah,
what it's all about.
appreciate
But I
Yeah.
also know, you know, obviously you took school seriously, but you were a business major. You focused on business. I saw. Did
Yeah.
my weird dad question is, did any of the stuff you learned in school, you studied in school?
Great question.
Did any of that translate into what you were doing or what you're currently doing?
I had a similar question, but it wasn't a dad question, but it was just going to be like, you know, like what are some of the things you learned actually starting a brand? I was curious. So no, that's a great question, Dad. Great question.
Yeah. I'll start with Pop's question. Yeah, I'll say yes, a little bit, but not a lot of it, just because the creative industry was so much different than the business way they teach you about it. You know what I'm saying? So I think early on, the biggest key things, especially from school, was just like the marketing aspect, like the general idea of marketing, because it's such a loose term, you know, especially nowadays. It's a very, very loose term. You can market in so many different ways, but I think just the fundamentals of it, yes, it did help, I'll say, from that standpoint. And then obviously, I think there was a capstone class where the class was all based on like a simulation where you had to like build a business from scratch and work on like 6 different areas. One was HR, one was marketing, one was, you know, actual human capital. Like that was a simulation we had to go. That was probably the most beneficial thing from an oversight standpoint, that capstone class, and then just general marketing. Because I think, was it a lot? I wouldn't say it was a lot. It probably like 25-30%, especially the foundations of it, because I never got too deep into it. I just wanted to play ball. Like honestly, the business degree was a decision because I hated math, and that was the only degree that didn't require to go through calculus and all this other stuff. And I was like, yeah, I know business. Business is easy. So like, let me just do the degree and get my, you know, and play ball still. And I got to play, you know, all those years. But it ended up turning to be a good foundational tool. And, you know, a lot of people say like, nah, college, technically, yeah. There was a lot of people I knew that I built relationships with, for example, in those business classes. And then just a general foundation allowed me to kind of, it just gave me the box so I can get outside of the box too. You know what I'm saying? From a brand standpoint. And I think that was probably the most valuable part to it.
Yeah. You know, Sekou, I was trying to work into the conversation that in addition to your soccer, you're all academic.
He was just trying to get that in some way.
You asked me to get that in, somehow work it in. So that's where I thought I'd work it in, Sekou.
I low-key want to answer this question too, because you know, I feel like, I mean, obviously you started KitBoys a while back, but we're obviously in our, you know, early stages with NSC. But I mean, when I hear you say 30%, you work on your posture or so? Oh, you showing off?
I need a T. Look, I was just gonna tell Max after this pocket ends. It's like, yo, I need a T at some point. Like it's
we'll get you. We may have to do an exchange, you know, because
that's fine. Look, however we need to.
But just like, I mean, I studied business as well. I was a finance major. And I don't know. I think maybe I mean, bro, looking back, like, or thinking back at some of the like projects I did and classes I took, like for some reason I was going through my old computer and like I opened up one of my old like case studies. I'm like, I did this shit. Like it was like, I mean, some of these like operations management information system, like, you know, different, you know, crazy supply chain management class, and like
logistics is another one. The logistic class,
a lot of the stuff very useful, but it's all out of my brain at this point. Like I'm gonna just keep it real. All of that shit is gone. And I don't know if it was because that's the thing. Even when I was a kid, I'd say I want to play professional soccer and I want to be a CEO. So I always knew at a young age that I wanted to be like, I wanted to run my own business. That was something that's always been a goal. And yet, for some reason, even when I was in college, like I don't know if for some reason I don't feel like I took enough agency over like, hey, you want to run your own business at some point, learn the very basic steps. Like I took these classes and, you know, got good grades and a finance degree, but like now where I am today, obviously I think I agree there's a foundation that was set in terms of basic business principles of like, you know, your revenue should exceed your expenses and, you know, all these,
you feel me?
Like simple shit like that. But like in terms of running a business, I mean, like we have we're working with an architect, we're working with a law firm, we're working with different realtors. We have insurance liability. We're getting pressed about tax issues. We just did numbers on some t-shirts, but apparently we weren't collecting tax. I hope the IRS is
that EIN.
We're paying it back. We're paying it back. We're paying it back.
There's a way around that. We can holler about that alcohol, but there's a way around that. As you know how taxes go, there's always a way.
Yeah, but just like, I mean, I think once you fill out the paperwork for your LLC or start a business, there's no how to, or hey, we're going to send you a reminder. This is when taxes are due. You need to do, when you do this, you need a liability waiver. You need insurance. So like, you know, how have you navigated just the growth of a business from you being the head of this, like all comes to you. You're the one that has to answer all those questions. And it's definitely like very cool to learn it, but just how has that experience been, you know?
The best way I can say this is fail forward, man. Like, and that's why I say a lot of especially from my end, like I always go back to like my parents. My pops went to school, but he didn't finish. My mom was first generation. There was a lot of general knowledge from that I didn't even know from a high level, like even know what this is sense, right? So like the business courses did help, but a lot of the other stuff, like for example, knowing how to handle taxes with t-shirts and a blank manufacturer, you know, I ended up learning like the best manufacturers always needed an EIN. Then I dug into an EIN to figure like, that's the tax ID you need to obviously, you know, report everything and go that way. So I think for me is like, and the one big thing, especially really unique to me, I think, and I always give myself credit, is like I was willing to do the work to study and figure it out. Like it took a dumb long time. It took hours and hours of like, and I always tell people I've never been afraid of the 10,000 hours ever. You know what I'm saying? Like ever. So like whenever it was something I needed, either I was going to fail my way forward to learn it, or, you know, I was going to spend the time just diligently searching it. Like even when I found that first vinyl lady, probably went through months of just hitting everybody up around Atlanta, like who can do this at a low enough price for me to make, you know, even make sense. So yeah, I have a really diligent with details and kind of figuring things out. That kind of helped me from a personality standpoint. But I think, yeah, man, like it's still a fail until you learn process. And I hate to be like that, but it is. Even with this amount of time, it's like there's just certain things you're not going to know, or you might not have the person around you that has the expertise. But at the same time, it's like, my pops always told me it was never an excuse to succeed. You know what I'm saying? From that standpoint. So like, yeah, I had to fail forward on a lot of that, Max. I ain't gonna lie to you. And you know, you learn a lot of hard lessons, but again, like you don't really make the same mistake twice neither. You know what I'm saying? So there's always a benefit, you know.
You studied at the University of KitBoys.
Yeah, come on with it. Look, that and shout out to YouTube University as well. You know what I'm saying? We wish you'd had that one around. Boy, that have made all the difference.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. I think that, you know, there's a common theme with a lot of, you know, people who we've spoken with, or just even when I just listen to other people who have been successful in building their own, like you said, building their own lanes. It's like there's for most people, there's no blueprint. There's no, this is how you do it. Obviously with certain resources, you're provided information, but like, I mean, this is a little corny. I just reposted some shit on IG today, right before this, like, the biggest failure is not trying. Like,
100%, 1,000%.
The only way you're gonna like learn anything or get anything done is if you try. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, you're gonna know a lot more about how to make it work than if you just were like, you know.
Amen.
And so, I mean, even just like in this very early stage that we are with NSC, you know, it's been a little over a year now. Like, we had a meeting probably, let me see how long ago, 9 months ago, probably, with a financial advisor, family friend who's like very successful in venture capital and been CFO for a ton of companies.
Know-how. Yeah.
And he pretty much like was like tried to scare. He literally said like, this is going to be intended to scare you, because if you knew how much work you had to do in front of you, you know, chances are you wouldn't have done it. Yeah, you wouldn't have done it. Yeah, you wouldn't have done it to begin with. Yeah. And so you have to, like you said, you have to be willing to put in those 10,000 hours, because at the end of the day, when you start something, when you're one of the people who create something, if you're not moving it forward, it's not moving forward. It's you know, obviously if you have a team or whatever, like different people to help, like that helps.
Delegate,
if you are the one leading the way and wanting to try and move something and evolve something, if you're not working, it's not going to work. So I think just that baseline knowledge of like, it's going to take a lot of work, and accepting that is the difference between people who are able to build something and people who are like, oh yeah, I started this thing and then like it kind of fizzled out because it was too much work, you know?
The big divider. That's why I call it the big divide, really, in the grand scheme of things, you know, so for people.
It's a testament. I mean, I think it's a testament to where you are now with it. I mean, that you started this in what year was it?
2019, 18, 19? Yeah. 18. Yep. 18. Yep. Spring semester.
And this can kind of lead.
That's good, Paul. Like,
Research. Yeah.
Hey, man. Y'all better than our work.
and this can kind of, it's a testament to how much work you've put in these last few years, but also, you know, just looking back at what you've done, like, this has been a few years and you've already done like some super dope shit. And I feel like you're not even scratching the surface, which is that much more exciting. So, you know, talk a little bit about some of the things that you have been able to do. Like I feel like, again, we're similar in that we want a brand to be able to like, it's a vehicle to do a lot of things, to express yourselves in a lot of different creative mediums, whether that be creating a kit, doing a video campaign, a photo shoot, you know, a collaboration with Umbro. Like there's so many different things that a brand allows you to do and express. You can send a message through a brand, you know, you can touch different lives through a brand. People think a brand is just like, oh, you're slapping a logo on a t-shirt. But it's like, it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than that. So, you know, talk a little bit about what the brand has allowed you to do and some of the cool things. I mean, I mentioned the Umbro collab, but just like, and I think, you know, you've done some work with Atlanta United. What are some cool things that the brand has allowed you to do? And, you know, what are some things that you're looking forward to kind of exploring as you continue to grow it?
Yeah, I think for me, just from the top line, like the brand allowed me to have another spirit that I knew I might have not had, you know, besides the game, you know what I'm saying? So just even from the spirit of who I am as a person, you know what I'm saying? My identity, it was shifted a lot when I had created it. So it allowed me to live in that kind of spirit of things, you know what I'm saying? And really, because I really have a lot of specific viewpoints, I'll say, on a lot of different things. And I feel like, you know, there's a lot of just things in general that have to do with the goodwill, you know, really about me, but not necessarily. It's really about the community, the people around me, you know what I'm saying? How that affects, like that was always a catalyst. So it allowed me to build that bridge, you know, for so many different things that I didn't have, you know, otherwise. And I think, you know, a lot of it was going back to where we, you know, where I started with the homies, like a lot of it was in that vein of like, damn, I could even show them that the 9 to 5 isn't necessarily the route outside we playing ball. Cause I love these boys. Like a lot of the boys, even DJ, we played all the way when we were kids through high school. Like that's 10 years worth of a relationship. So I became, you know, it's a different type of bond when you have friends that long. And for me, like it allowed me to live the brand allowed me to create that spirit to just, again, if it's not impacting them or just giving them another lane, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, that was part of it. I think early on the projects for me was the most fun part, I think as well, you know, especially with, you know, you mentioned the Atlanta United situation. I think that was like my first big break, quote unquote, you know what I'm saying? The head of marketing at the time was this lovely young lady named Skate, man. And she actually sat me and my mother kind of like front row in the MLS Cup that Atlanta United won. And that was the first time I got to take my mom anywhere or even experience that. So like, you know, shout out to her. I love her so much. She's the head of global marketing at Adidas right now, I think, for North America. So she's a big spot. And
do you guys still have a relationship?
It is relationships. It is. But I, especially too, a lot of the time, especially speaking of the Atlanta United project, a lot of that was just my overall network too. So, you know, I started there, kind of lived through those projects. I think the Jack Harlow situation came from that. The Flocka situation came from that. Yo, so actually, funny story. You know, all right, yeah. So that's early doors. So you know, when I was working at Nike, and this is a crazy story I tell about Waka Flocka. When I was working at Nike at the time, my manager, I think he might have knew like his entourage with Flocka, because you know, once you're in East Atlanta, everything's like this. Like you know, what I'm saying, everybody comes from the same spot. So it was one of the situations where he was like, yo, he was seeing what I was doing at Nike, and he was like, you know, everybody was like, yeah, you're doing your own thing and working, and that's cool. Let me see if I can help you. So, that was a relationship there. Dude, Flocka wanted a custom cut and sew piece. He was like, "Can you just do it for him?" Or like he needed something. I was like, "All right, cool, yeah, come."
Yeah.
Because he was really tightly closely with Atlanta United at the time. And then, bro, I probably drove all over Georgia to find his size and I think it was a football soccer jersey mix. All right, no, actually, let me back up. That first project with Skate at Atlanta United was to do a marketing project for the home opener for Atlanta United and the Falcons.
Okay.
And Skate had seen my work because I got in trouble for this, but originally I had some Atlanta United 2 boys wear like a jersey I designed, and it kind of came off as an official thing, and it came too big. So, but then Skate, that's why I say Skate was like everything, because like she could have just sued me or kind of like was like, "Yo, get out of here," or beat it. You know what I'm saying? But she was like, "Nah, I got this marketing project. You seem like you got some talent. Try to work on here." She reached out to me, brought me in her office, and I couldn't believe that day. I was like, "Holy shit! Like I'm here," type of deal. It was one of those surreal moments. So again, it was a soccer and a football jersey mix. And me, I was like, this is probably the corniest project ever. She didn't know that, and I didn't tell her that. But like, what do I look like doing some type of project? But I'm not going to turn that down. Hell no.
Yeah.
So I did it, and I found the best way to do it, and actually came out really, really well. Now, the only reason that project didn't go through at the time was because the MLS is obviously ran by Adidas, and the current contract from the NFL was Nike. So they couldn't officially release that project because of that last detail. It went all the way to the top, and they were like, right. So from there, obviously the Flocka situation came. Flocka, I don't know if Flocka had seen it, He was like, "Yo, can you build that jersey for him?" I was like, "Yeah, bro." And he's like, "He needs it in 2 days." I was like, 2 days? I was like, shit. Well, I drove an hour down south. He needed a double XL in a specific jersey. I had to drive all the way down south. I drove North Marietta or near Atlanta United to obviously get the United kit off the Skate. And I was like, all right, boom. I got it cut and sewed in a day. Shout out to my homie Manolo in Atlanta. He cut and sewed it for me quick.
Nice.
And I just happened to be at this agency party for the MLS Cup. And little did I know, I was wearing the jersey, obviously, you know what I'm saying, from the brand standpoint. I'm sitting on the couch, I'm playing FIFA. Flocka walks up right here to me. It was like an awkward pause. I was like, damn, this is crazy. He's right here. And all of a sudden he turns over, he goes, "Yo, that jersey kind of fire." I said, "Bro, little did you know, like I spent all the last 24, 48 hours trying to get you said jersey." So before that story, I had to call my manager. I gave him the jersey already. I had to call my manager. He was in the middle of getting wings. Lemon pepper wings in Atlanta is like the staple food. You know what I'm saying? So he had to leave his order to come bring me the jersey, and I handed Flocka the jersey that day. And that was one of the catalyst projects. And then Jack Harlow's homie, obviously, is a big Chelsea fan. And that was really cool. I'm cool with a lot of the producers and the rapper homies out here in Atlanta. It's a big music city. Yeah. I was able to do a project for Jack Harlow. And then there was just a bunch of just really underground projects that I got off early that kind of like put a lot of just momentum into everything, if I'm being honest. And then, from there, the projects kind of came downhill because I was like busting through every project and everyone was kind of a success. Like it was just, I kind of met the right timing of things too, because Atlanta United was in the front, like soccer was a soccer city. There was a lot going on. And I just kind of rode every wave that got carried to me, if I'm being honest, from underground state. If that answers the question.
When you talk about projects, I mean, we know what you're talking about, but the projects you're creating, designing, kind of your own soccer kits or jerseys, correct? Yeah. By and large?
Correct. Correct. Yeah. The only other one that was different was, the Flocka project, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I love that. I mean, I think that's the best way to. I'm actually going to quote you. This is very narrow. All right. But I feel like this is like super. I mean, just encompassing of all of this, and I feel like very much what I'm trying to do too. This is a quote. "We were just kids trying to do cool shit. None of us went to design school or film school, but there's beauty in that aesthetic. It's raw and authentic." I mean, bro, I feel like that's.
Hey man, that's the one. That's the one.
That's what we're all trying to do. Like we're just trying to do cool shit with our friends. That's real, you know. And and
it comes off that way, and it does come off that way, and that's why I love using that. That was one of the favorite. Honestly, I keep that quote for myself too. I look back on that a lot too.
I'm gonna use it. I mean, I feel like I've said a similar version of it, but like that's like, I mean, I feel like that's the goal right there. And so, I mean, you've been able to do some of these super, super dope projects. And obviously we started off with kind of what you're involved with now, and you're obviously working for Four Soccer Ventures. where's
Mm-hmm.
KitBoys now, and kind of where do you see it going? And then we can kind of talk a little bit about kind of just like the current state of American soccer. We could talk about a little bit of that after.
Yeah.
But just kind of like where are you with KitBoys? Because I know I saw something recently, or I forget how long ago it was, where you guys were doing some form of crowdfunding for a brick and mortar location, right? Or just
correct studio. Yeah. Okay. For a studio, more so like a studio, but obviously it allocates just a space of it, obviously, for anybody wanting to come and shop. I think it's unique to kind of have the multidisciplinary space. Like Kid Super has it on a t-shirt where he has this underground spot he's trying to build in New York, where it's like, it's a playing field on top, but then it's also a design studio, it's also a cut and sew part, it's also retail, you know what I'm saying, to an extent. I think because of the way the world works now, it's like that to me is like the ultimate proof of concept. I've seen it in different lanes, obviously, but and I think going back to the club, I think for me, it's like I realized I had so much potential, but there was a lot of things that from a foundational sense that couldn't move forward to scale. Does that make sense? So like, for me, a lot of it was like, okay, manufacturing has to be different. Like if I want to create a certain identity, I took a long time to learn cut and sew, kind of like a rapper. It takes a long time to like learn how to make beats. Like that for me was the process. Like I knew I had to master that in order to reach an even higher level, because there was only so much I could have gone at where it kind of got built at. And it kind of goes back to the point of like, hey, we just cobbled it together. Sometimes it'd be to a detriment at times, obviously, you know what I'm saying? You cobble it together. There's certain foundations that weren't set the right way. And for me, you know, I took a good time to reset the foundations. So, you know, in speaking of the KitBoys Club now, it's like, it's in such a beautiful re-infancy state. Like it's almost perfect for me. Like a lot of the processes, like from logistics, supply chain, are now set up and suited and ready to go. I think from an experiential standpoint, one thing I like at Nike is everything's experience. Everything is the five senses from a brand standpoint. So like, you know, how I activate in the community, what it looks like when I activate in the community, you know what I'm saying? When it comes to how the people touch, see, feel my product, touch and see, feel me at a pop-up, for example, like all those different kind of components, I got super detail oriented, and I almost kind of like, not to say blank slated it, but almost like I had to reconfigure it, if that makes sense. So right now, like I'm about to finish out the year. That intern at FSV I started as an intern at FSV, and that was cool. And I learned a lot of the processes, or at least I always tell people, like, I never knew what the training ground was supposed to feel like, or what it looked like, or what the level was. But that part of my experience did help me understand, okay, this is how it looks from this creative standpoint. Because again, it's such an unorthodox business. It made money in so many different ways. It had to be a different type of foundation. So got back to the drawing board on a lot of different things. You know, obviously COVID and production was a big shift in a lot of things. So I had a good place there, and then I had to chop it and reset there. So, and there's a lot of different setbacks there. But for me, I think it was about getting it all the way back into this rare infancy state where I can then scale through the roof. Because I knew there's going to be a time where all this shit collides. Obviously, we have a World Cup in 4 years? You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that to me is like, I have a new 4-year runway to kind of like go to the ground with everything, execute. So I took the later half of COVID years and kind of like the top of this year to really just like make sure everything's in place and everything starts the way it needs to be. So I think for me, the club is really getting to just, I get to really show people what the 10,000 hours really, really, really looks like. You know what I'm saying? And again, sometimes it took a long time, but again, sometimes people just allocate that process to somebody else. Or like for me, I think my leadership is going to help out where I've understood every dynamic of how this thing needs to work. And I'm like fluent in it to where I can speak to it. I can do it. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to building the internal team, it makes everything that much easier. And I just took the time to like, hey, I understood, like I came at it halfway. I knew only a little bit. I made a lot of it. But again, if it needs to go, the sky's the limit type of, it had to be better. And I knew that. So for me, we're at this rare infancy stage in a lot of different manufacturing processes overseas and actually locally here in Mexico, which is super cool. And then experiential is everything. Like shout out to you at NSC, because that's a big component, the playing component of it. You know, for me, it's like there's probably 4 or 5 different pillars I want to kind of activate as a brand. And I've kind of just laid the foundation for all 4 of those. So it's like probably looking here the next month or 2, I'm really going to start this is what the 10,000 hours looks like and just seeing how it goes from there. So fun place. Like I'm super excited about it. It's been a lot of work, but man, I just know it's going to be worth every single cent and time spent trying to figure that out. So
this is sort of a nuts and bolts question, but you come up with a new line every so often of your streetwear. And how is it sold? Obviously, KitBoys has a website, right? But do you sell it through magazines? Do you have pop-ups?
Magazines?
Well, I mean, was it?
No, it makes sense at the blog era. Actually, let me plug in my charger real quick so I make sure it don't cut off on us.
No, we're good.
I didn't mean magazines. What I mean, catalogs.
East Bay?
No, magazines. Magazine is true though. No, it's true. It's true. Well,
thank you, Sekou.
You know how Hypebeast is like a blog, but like Hypebeast magazine is like a So it's
how do you sell your stuff?
I think I mean e-commerce and direct to consumer purchasing is everything nowadays, and that's the easiest way. Obviously, you can go direct to consumer very easily through Shopify and kind of building a platform, making sure your website straight from there. I think for me, a lot of what I build is what I would kind of call, or what people call now, is like a cultural currency, for example. So like a lot of what I've done from a foundational level is like just really commit this authentic experience to where I garnered a lot of respect for what I do and how I do it, because I just pay attention to a lot of the details. So we all used to call it word of mouth marketing, but for me, it's like I built enough of a cultural currency where it's like, it's almost like this infinite buzz. And what we see with a lot of streetwear companies is like Supreme will never fall. Like it got to the point where venture capitalists had to step in and hand them half a billy, you know what I'm saying, to keep going, you know what I'm saying? And it's just a testament to 10 years of just cultural currency they built in their city and kind of how it works. So for me, it's twofold. It's obviously doing, the releases is like your own form of marketing. I did cut and sew, like crazy cut and sew pieces. We did one for World Soccer Shop, for example, where it's just like, it's a marketing piece. It's a one-on-one piece, but I call them marketing pieces because that's what they really do. They break the internet, and that's what they're for. It's like an inverse way of marketing. Then usually that gets on the blogs, or what you would say a magazine, for example. You get a couple of features. You just do all the like underground work you need. That's a lot of my like catalyst. And then, direct to consumer. It makes it easy. I just capitalize on just the raw, authentic love that I get from that standpoint. And then, and it kind of works itself from there.
Yeah, I feel like, bro, I feel like a broken record saying this, but like there's just so many parallels to what we're doing and looking to build, similarly. Like especially right now, where just a little bit of context of like what we're doing, and the parallels. Like we have the goal of opening a space, 2 5-a-side fields, a cafe bar retail space, similar to what you were saying with the Kid Super, where it's like this is somewhere to activate, somewhere where people to come, somewhere where all these different intersections meet, but like until we have that space, there's a limited way to monetize what we're doing. So one of those things is through merchandise, t-shirts, but like for the vast, or not for the vast majority, but for every other aspect of these pop-ups, these experiences, everything is for free. Everything that you are coming to experience is provided for free, except we're offering a t-shirt, for sale. So it's like, yes, we may be operating, I don't even want to say at a loss, because we get creative with different forms of brand sponsors, different ways to leverage these relationships and what we have in that cultural currency to make it not at a loss. But it's not like we're doing these things and bringing in tons of money. But what we are doing is creating a culture, creating a community. And so that when the time comes, that can be activated on a different level, when we have the space. And so I think what you're building is very much real. And that's why I was able to see what you were doing from Oakland through social media and be like, damn, like I want to be part of this community. Like I want to buy a t-shirt because I want to support this community and be part of it, because you're creating a culture, you're creating a community. So I think not everybody sees it that way. A lot of people are like, yo, how can I maximize my profitability right now? And it's like, you can make a little bit more money off this whatever next release, but that may be the end of your brand because you have no community or culture within that's real, So
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think for me, it's one of the biggest things is like, and I hate to use Supreme as the example, but there's only one Supreme. There's only one Supreme, and nobody has the foothold like Supreme. Like you would argue that there might even be businesses 40, 50, 60 years old that still don't have the influence and foothold as a Supreme would have. And it's just a testament to the kind of foundational level work. Like you might have to be at a loss for a year, 2 years. You know what I'm saying? Like the IRS technically gives you like 2 years, 3 years to report the loss. You know what I'm saying? So, even for, so you're good from that standpoint. It's like, how do you commit the experience at such an infancy state to where you leave that lasting impression? Like, and if it comes at a loss, some people don't really understand that, but it's about what it's worth in the evolution of things. And a lot of people don't really have that longer vision to it. You know what I'm saying? There wouldn't be Apple if it wasn't for the same ideology. It wouldn't be Nike if it was like Nike gave away free running shoes at every college track event in Oregon for years on end. You know, they gave them away. You know what I'm saying? Again, it's just to the experience of what needs to be created. And I kind of understood that at a foundational level. I knew it was going to be long. If it got to take me 20, it don't matter. Like I'll get there. You know what I'm saying? Like at the end of the day.
No, I credit you for that, or recognizing that at such an early stage, because it shows for sure. And I think, this kind of leads me into my next question. We don't have to go too much longer. Honestly, we could have like a part 2 and part 3 of this shit.
However y'all want to do it. I'm here. I got nothing but time. So however you want to do it, no worries.
But no, I just feel like, I'm just like wanting to chop it up about this right now. But like, you talk about having that four-year runway to the next World Cup, and a World Cup that's going to be in the U.S. So it's like, I mean, that's a very unique time and opportunity for soccer-related business, especially culture and community-centered business. Where do you think the current kind of climate of American soccer is in terms of those two things, culture and community? And where do you think we are, and like, where do you think we're going? And, this is something just to add a little bit into that. Like, this is something I talked to Raheem. I mean, there's a lot of intersection of what we talk about, but like,
that's my dog, man. I love him.
We're at I know, me too, bro. We're at a point where like soccer culture in America, it really hasn't been formed or shaped. Like, there's this idea,
and that's the hardest part of the business.
Yeah. And so I feel like we're at this point, and this is what's very exciting to me, especially here in Oakland, because like there's nothing. I mean, obviously there's the roots, but like in terms of broad culture, like there's nothing yet that has really been shaped. And so like I feel like we're at a unique time where we can shape that, and we can have the influence, like through brands and through companies, through fashion, through activations, where we can actually shape it and make it unique. Because I feel like in other countries, soccer is their culture. Soccer
well developed. It's well developed.
The U.S. obviously we're such a different country, but like soccer has never been like the dope, cool thing. But now it's like starting to gain a lot more popularity. Obviously, the World Cup coming, like people within other sports spaces are starting to see like, damn, soccer actually is really dope. Like you just have to look at it the right way, or like be tapped in with the right people. And so I feel like we're low key, we can be those people, So I think just kind of curious of your perspective,
Yeah, I think it's unique because I've always seen this, especially when I started the brand way long ago. Like and it's honestly the hardest part about this business is we still have to commit what soccer is on a mainstream level. Like it's hard to even do it. It's like an early entrant, for example, or a blue ocean strategy, for example. It's the same similar vein. I've seen it done in tidbits, so that was encouraging. Yeah, it was always done in tidbits, man. And I didn't get why people went fully into it. Because like it's the world's game, it's the biggest audience. We're looking at marketing dollars, that's the biggest thing up there. I think for me, it's like I was willing to bet on, even before we had that World Cup or we got the bid, I was betting on that moment. Like, I to be honest, I bet on the whole moment of it. Like, there was going to be a time where it was going to kind of shift. And like, I mean, if skateboarding could have done that and I hate doing this with Supreme, but like if skateboarding did that for Supreme, imagine what the world's biggest audience would do for something in a similar vein. Like that was my hypothesis about the whole brand situation. And the only real reason I was willing to even jump at it. Like, and even now that World Cup that we got the bid, I was like, that's the moment. Like I tell people all the time, I was like, I got 4 years till I'm out of here. Like the growth is going to be so explosive. Like it ain't going to make sense. But again, there's going to need, people moving in and shifting it the right way. There's going to need people, who have businesses in it to help it prolong it and develop itself. Like there's so many needs for once that moment happens. But yeah, it's going to be like the hugest thing in the world. And I mean, we're seeing it now converge kind of crazy now that we're just about 4 years out. Like, imagine, even from the standpoint, like, we're the biggest marketing country in the world, like, in the biggest sporting tournament, like, the audience there is just going to be way massive, way massive.
So you really think that the World Cup coming to the U.S., in Canada, and Mexico, but coming to the U.S. is going to be a major tipping point in terms of soccer culture?
I'll say seismic shift. Like, I'm willing to bet on it to that point.
I agree.
Because again, it goes back to the point of, like, this has already been the biggest sporting tournament in the world for decades, years, centuries, right? Yeah. Not even consider all of that facts, but the fact that where American soccer is as the landscape right now, like, we can arguably say we're bubbling. We have our real first golden generation, quote unquote, in terms of playing. Like, our youth academies are doing so way more well off than what they used to be. They're competing with teams in Europe all the time. Philadelphia Union is a good example of how they run their academies. Like, the U.S. players are now getting into higher clubs every year. So, like, the entire landscape, even from a playing and non-playing side, it's going to be the biggest catalyst for everything. Like, and I again, like, that was my hypothesis about the whole situation, and I was willing to just bet on it. And I think there is going to be a time where that bet's going to, obviously work out for whoever is in the space. But, like, it's going to be so big, it makes no sense, because then it becomes like, just the simple factors, man. Like, we're the biggest marketing country ever, like, by a long shot in terms of marketing dollars, TV rights. Like, you go into all the business stuff, it's already making sense. They're already making decisions for you 4 years in advance, for example. So, man, I think that's going to really open up the field. There's going to be a lot of development in the 4 years that lead up to that point, obviously. But, like, once that's like the floodgates open at that World Cup, if I'm being honest.
How much depends on the U.S. team continuing to succeed and qualifying for that World Cup? Well, I guess they will qualify because we're hosting it. Yeah. Good point, Mike.
I would damn near argue, even if we weren't into it, I would damn near argue, like, even if they weren't in it, it would still be huge. Like, it would still be huge, again, because it's just the whole marketing of the situation, the whole...
But irrespective of how the U.S. national team is doing...
Irrespective, like, it's going to bring huge international business. Like, the whole globalization concept as a whole is going to collide again, just because how America runs business, is the business capital of the world. Like, it's just going to unfold that way naturally, but it's going to need the level of development until we get there, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. All right. I had a couple of things I wanted to talk about, but we've had you for a minute. And honestly, I'd rather save it. Like, let's bookmark it, and damn near, like, I would love to do a part 2 with you. It doesn't have to be like next week, but, like, sometime in the future, bro, just because, like, we're just very much aligned on a lot of stuff, and just, like, you have a lot of very important things that need to be talked about and shared. Like, I wanted to talk a little bit about what you're doing with Black Star. I mean, and just, like, I mean, just more in the weeds of, like, what you're doing, and kind of, I mean, I just think, again, like, I repeat myself, like, we're so aligned on a lot of these things. It's nice to not hear it from myself or in my head, and finally hear it, so that's good.
Absolutely.
So we can kind of put a pause on, where we're at right now. And I think that's kind of a good time with, the state of U.S. soccer, and kind of this very unique time where we as, young people with businesses and brands can have an impact on the culture and really make our mark and move it in a positive direction. Like, it's not like we're just trying to do something, like, selfishly because we think it's dope. But I think one of the great things about what you do is, like, impact, bro. Like, just watching the impact that you make. I mean, that was something I want to talk about with Black Star. We could do that later. Just the impact, like, that's really what keeps us going. I mean, I feel like literally we're having these pop-ups where we have kids come out, we have, like, people come and play pickup, and, like, they're just like, yo, we've been wanting to do this. This hasn't existed. So just like, like, I'd much rather hear that versus, like, do $5,000 in sales of t-shirts. Cause, like, yo, this is real impact, like, you're actually impacting lives. So I would love to continue this conversation, but we do have an ending segment we can do right now. just because,
Cool.
don't want you to be up all night talking to us. So it's called What Are You Eating, Reading, Preaching, and Plugging? Very quick, just some little quick hitters. So eating,
okay.
It's a chance to highlight, is there something that you're chefing up do you want to highlight? Or is there an Atlanta eatery that you're like, yo, I got to put this place on the map, give them a shout out. But what kind of food you want to highlight?
I think where I'm currently at, if I'm being honest, I'm very much on my Larry June wave. Like, it's all about essential oils. It's all about healthy eating. My pops is actually a Rasta. So, like, me growing up, I actually did eat a lot of vegetarian foods. So, like, my diet is kind of like a hybrid mix, I would say. Okay. But, like, even more so now, because I recognize just what it does for you. You know what I'm saying? I do tofu, lots of just vegetarian meals for me. Big fan of just Asian inspired food as well. Like, it always is super healthy for me, especially homegrown. For soup, there's so many different like vegetarian options. I'm trying. Mushrooms is my favorite vegetable. Weird fun fact, but I could eat it on anything.
So you're in the wings capital of the earth, and you're not enjoying.
They eat mushrooms.
Look, all right. So let me put it to you like this. Let me put it to you like this. Now, I still do my Atlanta staples for sure. We're not missing that. Lemon pepper wings, wet, all flats. Well,
all flats. Yes,
depending on who you are. Depending on who you are, obviously. But all flats. The wings still get done. Nah. I still get to enjoy it. There's a lot of like real soul food brunch spots out here. Our brunch is our new party scene. It's like day partying, and you'll go get brunch. But brunch usually like soul food, mac and cheese. Oh, you name it, whatever they. Oh man, it's the soul food out here is so amazing. I know. And it's really, Atlanta's really diverse, so we eat a lot. But in terms of the Atlanta staples, soul food and wings, count me in. Like, definitely get that once a week.
Okay, we got that. Eating, reading. Is there any book or just text, any sort of text you'd want to highlight, recommend?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be. I'll be transparent. I haven't been doing the most reading recently. Just been busy with other.
It's everything is the input though.
Yeah,
it's the right. But look, one thing about books, it's the best input. I hate to say it might be top 3 if not.
Yeah. No, for sure.
I think for me right now is a book called The Go-Giver, and it's kind of like it's the only book I've read standing up and walking at the same time, and that's how good the book is. Like, I reread it all the time, so I definitely recommend that one.
What's it about?
It's basically like it's business, but again, it's a story. It's a story about a guy. Pretty much, he's working at a corporate firm, and there's this guy in the office who does nothing but has the highest paying job, and nobody ever knows why. And the story goes through 3 ways of three marquee ways of doing business, but it has nothing to do with business at all. It has to do with like personal relationships and how you behave as an individual. It has to do with just like a law of attraction piece where, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you have to, the law of attraction is a real thing, but there's also another half of it that does play a key component in the law of attraction and go into that. Right. And then there's like another one where it's just like, I don't know, it's just a lot of humane values to business that I love in a story, and it makes and it's based on a real story, actually. I can't remember I think I have it somewhere in here. I might have gave it to one of them. The Go-Giver. I recommend it.
Okay.
I'm trying to think, like,
definitely look into that. We'll find it.
Go-Giver. Yeah, it's an amazing book.
Eating, reading. Okay, preaching. You've done a lot of this. We could choose any of 15 different little sound bites, but is there, do you have like any sort of motto, words to live by? Just something that you were to, like, if you were to preach something to our global audience, just what would you preach to them? I
think it's 2 things. Can I do 2 things? Because they both kind of play equal part.
Sure. We're gonna have to charge extra though.
Look, I might take it. Look, they charge me 25 cents for extra ranch at the lemon pepper spots. You know what? It's not even that big of a deal. I think for me, like, there's having no fear in the 10,000 hours is everything. Like, just mastery is everything. I live and die by, like, I don't care how long the 1,000 hours takes. Once you hit that level, it's everything. So, like, just be committed to your craft from that sense of a 10,000 hour sense. And I think for me is like, just always do things that's purpose driven. You'll never lose sight of the route when it's purpose driven, man. I think that's one of the big things I always learn. If it's for other people or for humane values, even if it's for climate change, it don't matter. Like, if it's purpose driven, you'll never lose the vision or lose the love, because that's where the love is, like, rooted in. So, those two for me might be the ones.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, I mean, we like work with a sports performance coach, and like first day of the year, you have to answer the question, like, what is your why? And I think, that applies to everything, because when shit gets hard, when shit hits the fan, if you don't have a strong why, then you're not going to make it through, so I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Let's not charge an extra for the second point.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Okay.
Well, just put it on my tab. When I come out to Oakland, I'll pay you.
No, that can go into next pod, so we won't have to do another preach for next pod. And then lastly, what do you plug in? I mean, we talked about KitBoys, but is there anything, anything you want to plug? Where can people find KitBoys? Any upcoming, just anything you would want to plug. This is your opportunity.
Oh yeah. It's my favorite part of the segment. So you can find me personally at 47th Coup on IG and Twitter. I only say on IG and Twitter. I ain't got the TikTok yet. If you want to follow the club, we're also available IG and Twitter at kitboys.club, and there's a little dot between the club. Don't forget that part. Yeah. And then I think just stay tuned to the club, man. We have so many fun collaborations down the pipeline, and so many more fun things to do. Just stay tuned, and whatever you guys have for a mission, man, just follow your own guys' mission too. Because the brand is always just an extension of like, I can do it too. You know what I'm saying? And I always wanted it to be that. So to the audience, man, like, just use it as another reference of like, you can do it too, man, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Hey, for our 65 and older audience, which is significant, the KitBoys streetwear, okay for 65 and olders?
What if you want all the hot little honey dips? Look, you might have to do that. You know what I'm saying? If you little friend to the side, KitBoys Club will get you right, man.
It'll work for this guy. We got him dripping in a lot of different. He strictly wears Marathon Minute and NSC apparel, but let's add some KitBoys in the mix.
Yeah, I'll throw it into the mix.
Yeah,
into the rotation.
Hey, I mean,
there you go in the rotation. All right,
bro. This was incredible. Like, we went way over time, and we could have kept going. I literally am looking at like another 5 questions I just skipped because I could have kept talking about those other subjects for so long. I mean, once again, I appreciate you taking the time. I mean, I think, bro, your story and perspective is so valuable and inspiring and just important for not only people aspiring to do and work in the space that you're in, but just like anyone with goals of doing what you're doing, outside in other spaces and other brands. So I think, what you're doing is truly incredible. I think you're just scratching the surface. And like I said, I'm excited to continue this conversation and continue our relationship. I mean, shit, bro, all we've done is had 2 Zoom calls, and I feel like,
I'm about to say, we got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do, man.
I know. So I'm thinking in the off season, I need to get out to Atlanta or something. And then, you maybe need to take a trip out west.
I need to.
So I think obviously we vibe very well on a personal level, but then there's, a lot of business opportunity as well.
Yeah. Sekou, we're honored and very, very appreciative to have you as a guest, and you lived up to your billing. And I have great admiration for what you're doing and how you're doing it. And
Thank you.
We really appreciate your time, and I'll be following you from Oakland here and going on to the KitBoys site to look for my streetwear.
Get some drip.